Hello, hello, Earth Angel. How are we doing out there? Oh, such a joy to connect with you every week for the drip. I am tuning in for the first time from my new office space slash dance space slash photo studio that inspired by uh, a dear friend, Michelle, we are going to call the playroom, which is wild because this was going to be our bed. There's this I'm looking out on epic forest in front of me, and all the fairies are here. And by the way, Durga is hanging out behind us, Hindu goddess Durga. We got a seashell from my childhood and a plant I got on my I think 27th birthday. Little prefrontal cortex activation year. That was quite the year. So we're bringing those codes in. We've got the forest, we've got Durga, we've got the wisdom of transformation and the exploration of new playful ways to meet this thing that we refer to as shadow work or our work or personal development work or the work or our practice. There's so many ways to describe this experience of self inquiry and self discovery and personal transformation. So it's an honor to tune in today with those of you here live and on the replay. If you're live, please say hello so I can shower you with love. And same on the replay. I love getting the little notifications in my email inbox that's like, you have a comment on your YouTube video. So please feel free to say hello. It is always an honor to connect deeper to who's showing up in this space. And yes, it is an honor to share with you today quite a few exciting things. One being this new home space. Two being that we have the Devotional Dance Coven kicking off next week. We have our orientation on Sunday, the eve of the Scorpio full moon total eclipse. Is everyone ready? Y'all feeling it? And then we have our first activation next Monday on the actual full moon. So we are just really going to harness these activations that are pulsing onto the planet, through the planets. I like to think about, I'm not an astrologer, but as an energy reader, I like to think about the planets moving as the furniture being rearranged. And so we can sort of experience this larger chrysalis that we're all in, where we're all going through a shared collective activation, as the larger chrysalis. And then we have our own chrysalis of our own unique sovereign journey as we're experiencing the collective ripples. That is our chrysalis. And sometimes it feels like the furniture within us is being moved around. And we are at least 70% water, in fact. So that makes sense, right? That the moon and the planets and the water, and we're moving and we are part of the rhythm. Yeah. And that is something that we're so deeply going to connect to weekly on the Devotional Dance Coven, because to connect to the rhythm, to connect to the pulse, to understand that we have a right to surf energetic waves and meet whatever is coming forward on our path as an invitation into a next depth and dimension of self-knowing, to create the space to do that, to know that we have the right to do that, is a revolutionary act of self-love, because then we're in touch with our coursework. Yeah. One of my brilliant clients who I am getting to, clients and dear cosmic sisters, I'm getting to co-create with on something right now, asked me to define mystery school. How do I relate to mystery school? And I've been thinking about it since she proposed this question a couple of days ago in an interview we were doing for a project. And the way that I want to introduce it today, as we explore, today we're exploring the Creatrix Codes of Metamorphosis, which is very exciting in this new space. And I'm going to unapologetically be plugging the Devotional Dance Coven because it kicks off next week. And it's like the literal perfect container to do this work, especially right now. So I'm just going to go in and I'm just letting you know ahead of time that's what's happening. But my brilliant, brilliant cosmic sister in spirit and life and goddess who I've had an honor of walking with on her unique journey the last couple of years asked me, so what is your experience? Let's just leave definition out. She was asking me, what is your experience of the mystery school? How do you want to speak of this? And my answer as it continues to come into being is that life is the classroom and class is always in session. And there's something very special about planet Earth as a place for your soul to come do its work out of all of the planets and all of the dimensions, to be here and now and honor that as a fierce I want to say gift, like a fierce gift for your soul to get to be on a planet where we are taught through what we're taking in around us, what transformation is, what life and death are, what birth and death are, what cycles and seasons are. All we have to do is look outside and notice, like, wow, some of, like in upstate New York right now, some of the leaves haven't popped yet, but we're well into spring. And there could be this judgment of like, why have the leaves haven't popped? Or it's like, oh, wow, look at the way that I'm up here experiencing the earth in this way. And then I've got family in the South who's well and full into full blooms and warm weather and all of the things. So I'm just using this as an example to really understand that like physical reality is always communicating to us. We have signs and symbols coming to us from all directions at all times, and we can decide to engage with our life as the classroom and meet everything that's showing up as an invitation, as an initiation into what is next for us on the path. What are we ready to claim? What are we ready to be? What are we ready to express? What are we ready to explore? Where are we ready to go inside of us? And how are we ready to meet what has historically been tender and high charge and high sensation from a new perspective? So when we're working with the Creatrix Codes of Metamorphosis, there are 3 parts to this equation that I want to point to. And then we're going to be exploring this on our orientation call of the Devotional Dance Coven and the 7 activations to follow. So are you ready? Here's the Creatrix Codes of Metamorphosis. Because Jupiter is in Aries and I'm feeling expansive. So we're going to put this on the altar. So part 1 of the formula, recognize. If you want to take yourself through a metamorphic experience, if you want to transform, if you want to change, then there's like an inventory like state that you're going to be invited to go into to like assess across the altars of your personal and professional life on a mind, body, heart, nervous system level, at the altar of your relationships and your business and your vocation and your home. Like, what's up? What's going on? What needs tending to? And where do you need to delegate your energy in order to create space for the transformation that's calling you? Transformation requires space. Birth requires space. Death requires space. You cannot rush birth, death, transformation, metamorphosis, embodiment, self-care. I said this week on one of my stories on Instagram. One of my cosmic sisters and wisdom embodiments in my life, Alana, my friend Alana shared with me and offered self-care is patience. And I just think that that is so powerful to give ourselves the option to work with as a code. And if you've ever been in a birth space or a death space, or you've ever gone through a personal transformation, you know that it can't be rushed. And to rush it, we've been talking a lot about divine process on the devotional drip. To rush it is to quite literally meet the blessings and the lessons that are constantly wanting to pour in. And what I also want to offer here is that the blessings are, I don't want to say always, because I don't like language like that. It doesn't resonate with me, but I want to say that the blessings are often wrapped inside of a lesson. And it's like meeting the lesson, meeting the invitation, meeting the initiation, like unlocks the blessing. And when we're in the process of metamorphosis, we want to really honor the miracle that sometimes our manifestation, sometimes our answered prayer doesn't look the way that the ego thought it was going to look, especially because our ego is based on a bunch of self-concepting, right? And identity and nervous system programming and mind programming. Like quite literally, our minds and our nervous systems just get programmed by the codes around us. From womb to tomb, baby. We are just, to my client the other day, I described the nervous system as a sponge and the brain as clay. And the way that there is shaping that has happened, and also we have the capacity to go in and wring out and receive new codes and restore and renew and rinse and release. So to understand that there is a delicacy to this process, and if we're going through transformation, then perhaps what we initially intended or thought that we wanted looks very different than the manifested outcome. Because in the process of manifesting what you initially intended, you're taken through an entire transformational process to vibrationally align with what you want. And the planets, I'm not an astrologer, but I did just watch Empress Karen Rose, who is one of my favorite humans in the world and on the internet, talk about Jupiter and Aries and the retrograde energy going on, Mercury in retrograde. And like, so aligned with this energy of like, I'm sorry, I hope you're not hearing, I'm on my husband's computer and like his chat box is going off. I've got to get out of here. Okay, we're good. We're clear. I hope that was just me being annoyed by that and not you. Coming back, Empress Karen Rose, thank you. So Empress Karen Rose was talking about this period of time, Jupiter and Aries, this retrograde energy that we're moving through. It's such a beautiful time to go inside and get clear and burn up the old self-concepts and grow the new ways of self-relating and self-expressing. Like, this is a time to cultivate the garden, yeah? And like, we are the garden, we are the flower, we are the nectar. I'm actually there's this song by Regina Spektor that's a new song that just came out, and it's called Up the Mountain, or that might not be the name. It's something like that. And I'm going to do a choreographed moment to it and share it later. But it's so beautiful because she talks about like going up the mountain. And let me tell you what, I was just telling a teacher earlier today that Regina Spektor was a deep mentor of mine in high school when I was moving through some intense sexual assault and not having language for that. her music offered me a space to authentically express, unravel, explore, and get in my body with permission to just like really unleash whatever was there. So in her song, in this new song, she talks about going up the mountain and finding this garden in the forest. I literally just moved to a mountain and I'm looking out at a garden in the forest. And she says, in the garden, there's a flower. In the flower, there's the nectar. In the nectar, there's the answer. And then in the answer, there's an answer. And so it's in the garden, in the forest. Okay. So we're talking mystery school, right? Or sorry, in the forest, there's a garden. So we're talking mystery school. The mystery school is the forest. It is the labyrinth. It is planet Earth. It is your human journey. And you are meeting the forest. Thank you, Regina Spektor, for this code. Then we're going to weave in the Creatrix Codes of Metamorphosis because we're in our, I don't know if you noticed, but this is my great-grandmother's scarf, and we're just pulling out some full tarantula medicine today, and we'll get to our card shortly. But Regina Spektor is like, let's set the scene. The Creatrix Codes of Metamorphosis are like, let's weave the chrysalis. So we're just going on this journey. So the mystery school as the forest, yeah. Our journey, the journey of shadow integration, the journey of descension for ascension, the journey of devolving to evolve, the Creatrix Codes of Metamorphosis, recognize and alchemize to emerge, recognize, go in, alchemize in the chrysalis in order to emerge. We're going to get there. But for now, again, the forest, the mystery school, our journey. We're going into the forest, okay? That's you saying yes to going into your journey, to starting to pick up some rocks and move some boulders and get in your pelvic floor and activate your breath and say yes to your life and activate your devotion. In yogic philosophy, we could call this the spirit of tapas, of devotion, of fire, of dedication, of clarity, of willingness. So you're meeting your journey. It is the forest. You're going into the forest because what are you wanting to do in the forest? Creatrix Codes of Metamorphosis style, why are you wanting to even recognize what needs to change in the first place? Why are you even doing that? Because you want to get to the garden and you want to get to the nectar. You want to get inside. You want to have the you want to activate and work with the malleability of your brain and nervous system to harmonize around the resonance that you're ready to embody, which is to say the vibration that you're ready to embody, the self-concept that you're ready to embody, the way that you are ready to meet things that have been historically tender or resonated as blocks, as portals to your deepest wells of untapped power. That's the garden. How do we get to the garden? We have to go into the forest. We have to say yes to the journey. We have to say, like, I'm willing to go into this labyrinth because I know and I believe and I trust, and by way of my faith and devotion, I will find this garden. And I will then have to activate surrender because we can't force opening, right? We have to surrender. We have to create space to open for the garden to reveal itself to us. And then ultimately for the flower in the garden, the flower that is you, to have space to actually come into bloom, to express, to shed some leaves in the form of self-concepts, relationships, identities, boundaries, habits, ways of doing and being that no longer resonate, that you're just like, you have to, I'm hearing like pop, lock, and drop it, but like quite literally pop, lock, and drop the old so that you create space for the new. Plug of the Devotional Dance Coven, because this is what we're doing. Every week, I'm going to take you on a journey to the garden, so that you can meet the forest and you can be the flower and you can find the nectar and you can understand that you are the answer. And then once you recognize that, it's like a never-ending portal into all of the inquiries that your mind, body, and nervous system have ever wanted to put forth. And then you get to be in a relationship with your channel of inquiry that's empowering, and you can direct your channel, you can direct your questions, you can even create a container for your metamorphosis. And in fact, the butterfly teaches us that that's really a non-negotiable. So in the devotional dance coven, I'm going to give you the container, and then I'm going to guide you in the container as you then guide yourself through 7 initiations into your unique higher self embodiment. What is our higher self? An ancient, primordial, all-knowing presence that we have direct, sovereign connection and access to, that we can, by way of our willingness to embody the light of our honey and divinity in our blood and bones, bring more of our multidimensionality quite literally into our human bodies and into our physical human lives and journeys and relationships and businesses and all-encompassing divine purposes. So we're going to go through 7 self-initiations, root to crown chakra, through 7 portals, 7 passageways, and 7 rites of self-initiation, 7 pillars that you are going to create foundation and stability and strength and empowerment around. Like, we get to cultivate self-empowerment now in our bodies. Like, that is great news. It makes me want to ask, for those of you who are present live and on the replay who want to tune in, like, what has your history with empowerment been like? What is your relationship to that word? I used to think that empowerment came from other people. I think that's very much so that within my psyche, my mind and body is a direct relationship to being raised in 90s girl culture, Disney Channel, like nonstop. I thought like I was going to get empowered, and I do think we can empower each other. I think that's a beautiful practice. And also, I think that there's this false sense of empowerment and confidence that was fed through media, for my generation, for generations previous to me, for 2 generations now. Like, this seems like sort of a product of patriarchal conditioning around, like, we can't self-generate. And as a generator, human design profile is 5-1, a sacral authority. Can you tell? Those of you who are my human design people, I know we at least have one here. My generator and fire wisdom on that. I was actually just told by my grandmother this weekend that myself, my mom, my grandma, my great grandma, and as far back as we know, all share the same birthmark between our eyes. And I was just told this weekend, or yesterday, last night, from my grandma. We were on the phone having a little fireside chat, and she told me that our birthmark has been historically called the flame in our lineage. Dad, if you're watching, my dad likes to tune into Devotional Drip. Have you heard that? Did grandma tell you that? Yeah, I just found that out. So on my flame fire generator, Leo moon, Sag rising, Sag north node, and Jupiter in Aries energetic wisdom reading, what I want to say is it's time to plug into our capacity to self-generate joy and pleasure and magic and peace and power and confidence and self-agency and self-authority and self-permission and self-intimacy and self-expression and intuitive knowing. It's time to self-generate the permission to, like, be a living, waking, breathing channel, earth angel, light worker, high priestess, high magician, like, teacher, leader, mentor, creative, coach, whatever, curator, tastemaker, like, ceremonialist, doula, birth worker, entrepreneur, thought leader, speaker, artist, writer, poet. Like, who are you? Where are you? And how are you ready to activate the qualities of you that you've historically known are part of your divine purpose, but have always needed, just like you've needed coven and support and community around inspiring, because I want to talk about empowerment. I want to talk about empowerment as twofold. I want to talk about the importance of our relationship with our own sense of self and our self-concept and our identity and our connection with our higher selves, and like our coursework and our sovereignty and knowing around that, and like being the spiritual baddie who like knows what's on their altar to be tended to and is like is interacting with life as the mystery school. We've got that. And then we've got the other piece, which is like the importance of who is surrounding you, the community. Like, it's not all a lie that part of our empowerment and sense of feeling safe, empowered, and belonging comes from outside of us. It does come from the circle, from the tribe, from the community, from the coven, from the village. I love village. That's a term that some of my dear friends use. And I feel like that's such a beautiful way to describe it. Like, we need to take care of our villager person and then interact and share with the village and be in the village around like, here's the work, here's the activation, here's the initiation. I say this on the drip all the time, but one of my teachers, Kyra, author of the Sophia Code, says, the journey of ascension is one that's done with good friends who know the way. And I believe that we all know the way, and the way being the way of our hearts, the way of beauty, the way of benevolence. Empress Karen Rose used benevolence to describe the energy of Jupiter today. Like just this very, and like benevolence recently to me has been like revealing itself as like acceptance. And honestly, like a state of revealing. And so as we're riding these currents, to be in a space, and this is the last thing I'll say on the Coven, and just being in community specifically, even if you don't join the Devotional Dance Coven, please create some accountability with some Coventry and check in with each other and do your magic together and swap notes and swap codes, because we are all being self-initiated together. And so it's important to like reference with your people, where are you at? How is this feeling? What's going on? How are you serving this wave? Let's exchange codes. Let's exchange tips. So the last thing that I'll say on this is this art of revealing, of benevolence, of opening, of creating space to transform within a sovereign chrysalis that you create for yourself, and then within the chrysalis of a community, is like an ancient code. It's an ancient code for humans to gather and honor their divinity together in shared space, and then celebrate the unique sovereign channel of each person's divinity and higher self knowing, and then use that to co-create something magnificent. And this is the first round of the Devotional Dance Coven, so it's going to be very special, but it's based on, I mean, I've been in my movement trading since I was 3, and I'm coming upon my 30th year in January. So it's been a long journey. And I've been consciously studying in the healing arts for the last decade. And then private mentorship and coaching have been the main realm of my existence for the last 3 or 4 years. So I'm taking all of these codes and we're weaving them into a format, a template, and a framework that is going to support you in coming alive in your unique channel. Like, what does your channel have to offer and share? What would it be like to connect to it weekly and then have invitations to connect to it through ritual in your home and daily through your practice? If you're already having, I keep hearing the song, miracles happen once in a while if you believe. Like, if you're already going through, I know a lot of my clients right now and folks watching this are going through a metamorphosis and emergence. And if you're already going through that emergence, like you are the butterfly coming out of the chrysalis, to affirm your arrival and to practice your flight patterns. within a container of guided facilitated support as you practice out in the world. And then once June hits, like really start emerging and sharing the nectar and the pollen and all the good things. That is, I just want to speak into, if you feel like you have your wings right now and you just emerged from the chrysalis, this container is also a great space to practice flying. Like, how are you going to fly this time? I'm reading a comment. Hi, Kate. I feel like I've been really taking in inventory. Oh, beautiful. Yes, yes. So someone is sharing that they've been in a space of taking inventory, and their pattern app said that they just exited that timing, which is so funny because I was just talking about you've already come out of the chrysalis and you're like spreading your wings now. Like, it's also valid to have a container to chart your flight patterns, because butterflies' wings are delicate. I found a butterfly a couple years ago, and I'm currently completing a cycle around when I found that butterfly, and its wings broke the other day in one of my little special magical boxes. And I was just like, wow. And as I'm talking about the butterfly, I literally look down and we fully have like this situation going on. So all the butterflies, and the butterfly was a huge guide for us in the devotional dance party, and the blue-winged butterfly specifically. So, okay, that was a lot of tone setting. We're going to the forest. We're going into the forest. We're finding the garden. We are understanding that we are the flower. We are resourcing the nectar, and we're doing it daily, and we're doing it through our self-care practice. And through that, we're finding the answers. It's in the quiet that the answers come. It's in the slop of the chrysalis that the new wings emerge. It's in the leaf drying on the flower in the light of the sun that the butterfly starts to chart its journey, right? So there's this overall sort of invitation into creating space, creating container, which is always my invitation. And also, especially right now, not only because the devotional dance coven, but also, and I guess I could take credit for it, but it's so higher self and ancestral guided for me, y'all, because I'm not an astrologer, but somehow my containers just line up with these portals, and I'm just deeply grateful for how that happens. So don't just create a container because I'm calling out the butterfly, because the devotional dance coven is happening, but also because like we are actually quite literally moving through a birth canal right now. And what I know from my birth doula training is like, you need to, like, every birth, I said this last week, requires its own unique set of conditions. And not every birth is the same. And not every birth happens vaginally. And not every birth like requires I just want to say, like, every birth is different, just like every death process is different. So within this coven, you're going to be given a template to go through your birth and death process, through the personal rebirth and death process, but it's going to then be infused with your own unique codes. So bringing it back to codes, bringing it back to the Creatrix Codes of Metamorphosis. We have our metaphor of the forest. We'll bring that back in. The devotional drip, I'm just like channeling a mural. So I trust that it calls in the artist brains who also like to play in this way. So I'm going to pull up my notes because I actually did take notes, even though I've been channeling for 40 minutes. As I pull this up, it makes me want to speak into like, gosh, like this has been coming up as a theme recently, just the validity of practice and having time to practice and hone our skills and practice being in our body and practice channeling and practice receiving messages. Like the devotional drip has been so huge for me for that. And then also my containers where I go to do my work with my teachers and mentors is so huge for me for that specifically. So just another note on like how important it is for light workers, for intuitive beings, for leaders, for visionaries, for creatives to have space to be supported in connecting to their brilliance and genius often and all the time, especially if there's been a history of denying that or that not having as much space to express as it would have historically desired and yearned to. Metamorphosis is a reclamation from the inside out, which is the perfect passageway into our cards for today. I'm going to take a sip of water. Love our magic light on the wall. I've been wearing my Mother Mary pendant as a bracelet on a necklace chain that I wore for my wedding. It's been a fun adornment. Yeah, we are the altar and the temple, and the chrysalis is, we are also the chrysalis. Like, our practice is a container, our home space wherever we have our altar and our practice mat. I call our practice basket, is what I call it in the private mentorship, and what I'll be calling it in the devotional dance coven space, of just like, we all have our practice spaces where we go and we land and we're in our vibe, but also like we are the practice and the altar space. So, you know, when I was getting adorned today, and we'll talk about this a lot in the devotional dance coven too, I'm thinking about like the way that I'm wanting my throat to activate and share new codes. So calling in the ancestors on my throat. And then I have my cross of Camargue, which is a cross that connects me to Mary Magdalene and Mother Mary, and my lineage in connection to the rose and the rose codes. And then I've got my Mother Mary on my wrist to like just remind me that my hands are also part of the transmission, what I'm creating. And then as I'm talking to you and seeing myself in this video reflection, which is often very activating, in confronting and powerful ways, like seeing the red of just like reminding myself that like I am here to give a transmission that is bloodful, that is rooted in the body, that is connected to the body, that makes sense to the body. And the way that our blood is the river that connects all of us. And that is so powerful. So just a note on sacred adornment, and we'll be exploring that weekly for each activation. I'm going to invite people to come in adorned based on whatever activation we're moving through. More on that. But for now, let's talk about our allies for today. So the first one that came out is our friend the bee. And I love this because I feel like there's a lot of movement right now, right? Like there's a lot of energy moving. There's a lot of newness. There's a lot of starting. There's a lot of ending. There's a lot of returning. There's a lot of finishing. There's a lot of tying up loose ends, like meeting devotion. So there's this sort of earnesty to the bee. The bee is democratic. The bee is hardworking. The bee is part of the hive, part of the community, part of making the honey happen. So this bee coming forward as an invitation to be in the first part of the code of the Creatrix Codes of Metamorphosis, which is recognize, and let that help you find your footing. When you recognize, when you anchor, when you ground, when you assess the situation and then decide democratically in your discernment, in your devotion, there's like an energy of clarity here, where to allocate your energy and to what needs attention first, which is a tender exercise for a nervous system that has survived any sort of chaos in childhood, or any kind of chaotic environment in general, right? We're talking about the nervous system as a sponge, the brain as clay. So if there have been imprints and codes of chaos, the process of discerning, deciding, delegating can be tender. So there is this energy of parenting yourself through the process and not judging the simplicity of sitting down with a pen and a piece of paper and writing the list and prioritizing based on what needs to happen first, so that you can create space in your life for more rest, pause, restoration. If you're nervous about joining the Devotional Dance Coven because it feels like adding more to your plate, that's super valid. My prayer for this is that spending these 2 hours connecting with yourself every week in the live calls, and then however much you want to do between calls, is actually going to support you in creating more space. Because when you're in the rhythm of the heart and when you're in sync with the pulse of metamorphosis, when you're opening to the change that's calling you, when you're a yes to what's in alignment with your highest good, and you're putting down the things that don't serve, there is more space created to do the things that you want to do, desire to do, and perhaps even need to do to get past this next part. So you can get over here. I'm getting a lot of energy of like climbing the mountain. And in the Devotional Dance Coven, we are certainly going to be climbing some mountains in consciousness. And it is a boot camp energy. It is like, I'm going to spend 7 weeks devoting my time, energy, consciousness, resources to this. I'm going to make it up this mountain. And on the other side, I'm going to be able to see more clearly. I'm hearing from the devotional or the practice playlist, I think from last month, I can see clearly now, the rain is gone. But in order for the clarity to come, there's an embrace of the rainstorm, there's an embrace of the thunderstorm emotionally. Like the bee out of balance can be overworked and annoyed. So there can be this energy of burnout, which is super valid and real. And so it's like, how do you meet the storm? My dad, who's such a wisdom keeper, said to me, I'm probably going to butcher this, but he said something, it was a couple weeks ago. And we were not sure if we were going to be able to move into this house or not. And we were really in a process of deep trust and faith and just listening and surrender. And he was like, it's not about like what's happening. It's about how you meet it, which is also such a transmission coming through today with our divine feminine ascended master. And I know I'm jumping from the bee now to Pope Joan, but that's just how we're going to roll. Pope Joan. And what I want to share about her story today in relationship to this is that she is the permission slip and invitation to do the thing, even if the external circumstances are not giving you a go sign. Like, what is it to show up and do the thing anyways? And like be in your devotion and be in your stewardship around that. That's the B. That's the B. That's the democratic discernment, delegation, all these D words wanting to come through, which feels like very like grounding. So in recognizing as part 1 of the Creatrix Codes of Metamorphosis, we are grounding. We are grounding. And the B is like, you are sensitive, you're aware of many subtleties at once, you love the details. So you're going to get overworked and tweaked out if you don't give yourself time to get quiet and restore. And like, it's like if you don't wring the sponge out, it just gets soggy and then it starts to smell, right? By the kitchen sink. And so we land in our practice to wring it out. And the practice is also happening all the time. And so when we're in our practice regularly, like we're landing in it, it's easier to extend the practice to our life and have it actually feel that way. Like have it actually feel like, oh, right now I'm going to let the dishes be a meditation, because you're already clicked into that, right? You're already clicked in. The B is like, this is what we're doing. This is the transformation that's happening. These are the things that need to get done. These are the things I want to get done. So here's where I got to cut the crap and just like zone it in so I can actually take a fucking vacation. once in a while, you know? So I'm not just feeling like I'm working all the time. And I hear that and I get that. And I know that's such a shared experience for creatives, visionaries, leaders, light workers. And so, how can we bring self care into our daily life? How can we be more playful with it? Because in addition to the be getting things done, it's like I'm wanting to point to two aspects within you to explore: the part of you that really likes to get shit done, and then the part of you that like loves the details. And so and then the part of you that, because you like to get shit done and you get shit done and you like the details, then there's this other part of you that's also asking for vacation because you go in, so you're going to need space. And it's like, if you're going to activate your highest vision and purpose and you're going to express out, then the more you're expressing out, the deeper you need to go inside. And if you're really inside right now, then your journey is going to be bringing yourself more to the outside. But everyone is going to be in a different space on the path of their personal metamorphosis, as you're meeting the forest, as you're finding the garden within you that is you in general. So, activating beekeeper vibes. You are the beekeeper of your own honeypot. What's the vibe? What needs to get done? What needs to get activated? So you can actually like enjoy the honey, like enjoy what you've created, enjoy how hard you've studied, enjoy the devotion that you've put in. This balance between work and play is really coming forward with the bee, infusing more play into our work and infusing more devotion to where we've historically collapsed or avoided tending to that spot, that space, that area that's ready to be anointed and nourished. And we all have it, and it's different for all of us. So that's the recognizing, right? It's the recognizing, it's the inventory, it's the looking around, it's the discernment, it's the deciding. Now I want to get into our second ally coming forward today, which is the Peacock. And the next two allies we're going to be with for part 2 of the Creatrix Codes of Metamorphosis, which is the second part of the formula, which is alchemize, alchemy. Get my red lipstick everywhere. So we have recognize, part 1, alchemize, part 2, emerge, part 3. So we're talking about recognition and creating the space, creating the chrysalis, creating the agreements, creating the devotions, creating the goals, all things I'm going to walk through with you in the Devotional Dance Coven, all things you can also walk yourself through. Part 2, part 2, alchemize, alchemy, transformation, metamorphosis, devolving, going in, going down, descending, the journey of Inanna to the underworld, the going in, the shining the light in the cracks and the corners in order to love those parts, welcome those parts, warm those parts. I'm so glad Jupiter's in Aries. Warm those parts, like invite them home, invite them in. It's shadow work is a welcoming home. How about that? How about shadow work as a welcoming home for the parts of us that we have historically kept out in the fires of our self-judgment or the cold of our disassociation and censorship? What are those parts that have always been too much, too wild, not enough, not ready yet? The parts that are cloaked in shoulds and should be's already, and not enough, and not rightness, wrongness. Shadow work is going into the underworld of your mind, body, heart, soul, and being willing to retrieve the parts of yourself that are hanging out in the wings, and they're just waiting. They're just waiting for you to say hello, and they may be acting out in certain ways. They may be trying to get your attention. That's why the awareness, the self-awareness part of shadow integration, shadow work, self-acceptance is shadow work. That's why that part invites us to get still and quiet enough to listen to the parts that have historically not been given the mic to share their truth. What does it look to dance and breathe and journal and build altars and adorn and create and land in your practice and visualize and do your affirmations on behalf of welcoming those parts in and welcoming those parts home? That is our invitation in the work of personal transformation and metamorphosis. And that's also our work when we're working with our two alchemy allies, the peacock and the butterfly. Going back to the peacock, thank you for joining me in that channeled moment. That activated me in many ways just now. I'm going to go back and listen to that. That might make it to Instagram. So, okay, when we're working with the peacock in terms of like all of this we're talking about in terms of bringing the inside to the outside and meeting shadow work from a new perspective. The peacock, we think of like, oh my gosh, the feathers of the peacock. Like, they're so fabulous. And like, yes to being fabulous. But here's the secret of the peacock as a teacher and a mentor. The peacock is the call to reveal your inner beauty by way of your self-compassion, by way of your willingness to, I'm seeing a peacock and a turkey right now, like meeting a bunch of stuff on a path in the woods and then gobbling it all up and being like, yum, 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 yum. It's like the peacock as the assimilator of anything is how Kim Kranz describes the peacock in the Wild Unknown Animal Spirit deck, which is where this card is from. Love this work, love this book, love this deck so much, highly recommend. So the peacock is the reminder that beauty resides within. And if we want to get in touch with our inner beauty, it happens through the process of letting go, the process of surrender, and the process of letting go of our past to create space for what's here for us now. And I just so deeply feel that it is important for us to have death ceremonies for the parts of us that we're ready to just let die, like the parts of our ego that we're ready to just be like, I see you and I love you and I'm ready to integrate you in this way. And by way of that, we can form healthy egos. Like, how is a healthy ego formed? Through an intimate self-trust, self-intimacy, an intimate self-intimacy, a little redundant there, channel, but like through a self-trust, through a self-intimacy, through a self-permission, through self-love, through self-expression, through self-knowing, and through self-realization. Like, that is how healthy ego is formed. That is how healthy self-concept and higher self-identity is formed. We have to comb it through all of these initiatory portals, which all of those portals I just mentioned are actually the 7 initiations that we're going to walk through each week of the Devotional Dance Coven. So the peacock, pointing to self-acceptance specifically, which I have tracked as an activation deeply connected to the third eye, connected to our intuition, connected to our capacity to vision. And what's interesting about the peacock being connected to self-acceptance is when the peacock says, when we are not digesting, we are blocked off from our intuition and our guidance around next steps. Like, the peacock says, your beauty comes from your digestion and your capacity to digest and your capacity to respond to your life. And it's the inner resonance and the art of the embodiment that you cultivate by way of your willingness to accept yourself, accept your life, accept what's happened, and then forgive yourself and forgive versions of yourself that you are still punishing somewhere within you, and that is holding up an old paradigm somewhere. The Peacock says, let it go. And I know that as a survivor of trauma, that's like self-acceptance and forgiveness. Quite frankly, I am not the ultimate wisdom keeper on this. You're a wisdom keeper. You're a healer. You're a leader. You're a teacher. You're a visionary. What are your codes around self-acceptance that want to get activated? What around self-forgiveness? What around the texture of forgiveness and acceptance and surrender and opening to receive more of yourself are you ready to activate within you? What's your wisdom on forgiveness, on acceptance? What within you is asking for acceptance and forgiveness? And who and what within your life is asking for acceptance and forgiveness? It's a powerful practice to send those who your ego has labeled as enemy, compassion and love and forgiveness. And I don't pretend to be an expert at that practice by any means, but I do know it to be powerful, and I do know it to be meaningful, and I do know it to be worthwhile. So for whatever that's worth, there's a lot of past that's going to be showing back up. What does it look like to meet your past, to meet your life, knowing that your true beauty comes from within always? So take care of the inner garden and let the way that you take care of your inner garden reflect in your outer expression. In addition, if you're having a hard time connecting to your inner garden, adornment, self-touch, treating yourself like the altar, activating your self-expression can actually bring you into the garden. It's like the fragrancy of a rose that brings you in. So I'm almost saying I'm remembering earlier on the porch, God, I was like, what does the title of this drip need to be? And I might need to change it now. Or I might want to change it now that it's coming through. I'll check in after we're done. But what is the dance of discovering yourself? What is it to dance with yourself, to dance with your demons, to dance with your shadows, to dance with the parts of you that have historically been told they're wrong, that you have told yourself are wrong, and invite those baddies in and let them flap their peacock feathers a little bit. And it's through anointing and welcoming and blessing yourself in that way that those parts of you will then start to feel like they've got space to start expressing out. And you are in your stewardship. You are in your doulahood of your own higher self-consciousness that you're bringing more into your human body by way of your practice, by way of your willingness, by way of your breath, by way of your devotion. You're inviting more of you in, more of you to the table, more of you to your relationship with yourself, with other folks in your life, with your community, with your business or vocation, with your leadership, with your entrepreneurship, with your vision, with your family. Across all of the altars, you're then infusing and shining this nectar of self-knowing. That is the invitation of the peacock. Cultivate the inner beauty, shine it out. And also, like I said, if you need to remember that you have a garden, flash your tail feathers a little bit, put on some red, put on some lipstick, put on some jewelry you love, and remember that you're a bad bitch. And that's a valid fucking practice of embodiment. And it's a valid spiritual practice. And it's a valid personal development practice. And it's a valid self-care practice. Okay. So peacock, when out of balance, can't digest situations. So I'm being directed to Pope Joan again around if you're having trouble digesting, slow down, and give yourself permission to process. Permission to process will lead to, in the code and words of my dear mentor, Des Davis, permission to be in process will lead to permission to prosper in all ways, always. When you start giving yourself permission to digest and check in and move from that space and claim your intuitive knowing, claim what it is that you're experiencing, claim your right to have a relationship and an intimate process with your own transformation, with your own journey, with your own body, with your own mind, with your own heart. When you're in that process, it will reflect as prosperity. And the T part of prosperity is calling me for whatever reason to be like, when you're making a tea, you want to get all the right herbs for your constitution, for what you're moving through. What are the herbal allies and plants that are going to support you in meeting what your body, heart, and mind are uniquely asking for right now? So you gather the ingredients, and then you boil the water, and then you pour the hot water over the tea, and then you let it steep, and then you drink it, and you taste it, and you notice it, and you let it work with you. And then on the other side of that, you're transformed. And for whatever reason, like drinking tea and that process of like making your tea and making your medicine is wanting to come forward as a metaphor for like how we can meet our inner work. It can be that luxurious, it can be that spa-like I'm getting, and we can create delicious experiences for ourselves with not a whole lot of stuff, but a whole lot of intention and a whole lot of willingness to let ourselves play and express in ways that are fresh and new and also old. Like I'm getting the energy of like bringing back parts of yourself, or rather bringing forward parts of yourself. What is it to bring parts of yourself forward? So our dear Peacock friend teaching us that in part 2 of the Creatrix Codes of Metamorphosis, in the alchemy part, I saw someone pop on, so I'll just reseed. Part 1, Creatrix Codes of Metamorphosis, we are recognizing, we are being our own stewards, we are creating the chrysalis, we're creating the container, we are noticing what needs to be tended to, and then we are going to tend to those things because we are loving ourselves, and we are guiding ourselves, and we are healing ourselves, and we are creating conscious space for ourselves to manifest our visions and our goals and our dreams and our desires. Then we have part 2 of the formula, which is Alchemize. And now we have our friend the Peacock, as I just spoke to, teaching us that the process of transformation is an inside job, that we can be assimilators of anything, that it is by way of our compassion that we can forgive and accept ourselves and others. And a code for compassion that I want to offer, that I will just offer until the end of time, because it changed my life when my body learned this, when my mind learned this, when my nervous system learned this. Compassion is such a buzzword. How do we activate compassion? How do we work with the texture of compassion? What my teachers have taught me is that curiosity leads to understanding, which leads to compassion. So again, pointing to the peacock, being like, we need to go inside, we need to get curious, we need to let ourselves be in the alchemy part of the chrysalis, where my clients know I call it the sovereignty of slop, where there's just an utter dissolving happening, like a full melt, a full burn off, a full slough off, a full just like, it's like a sensual process of just like everything melting and landing and releasing and opening, so that from that place there can be a new expression created. So the peacock teaching us that that's an inside job. The feathers come from the inside. Love that code. Thank you, Peacock. Gorgeous card. Wild Unknown deck. Animal Spirit deck. Now we have our third friend. I just saw a part of my note. Last thing for the peacock, as we're bringing this energy of self-inquiry, investigation into balance, a beautiful way to kind of focus on your chrysalis work, on your alchemy work. What this book offers, the Bring Into Balance position, is to meditate on the navel. What I want to say about that is, like, the navel is our third chakra. It points to the Manipura chakra, which is, again, about healthy ego and identity and self-concept and like updating the way that we relate to ourselves and understanding that that will profoundly update the way that we relate to our lives and then the way that life is relating to us by mirror of our expression. Let me know what's resonating from this drip so far for those of you who are there. Hi, Marissa. I'm so glad you're here. Marissa made epic art that you can see, I mean, all the time. You can see on her Instagram, which I linked in the Devotional Dance Coven invitation, or I put the handle for so you can find it. But she also made this epic, it was this self-portrait I had made, and then she took it and did all this like amazing collage energy work with it, as she does as an epic artist. And it's on the Devotional Dance Coven lead page. And I told her yesterday, like, her art made the Devotional Dance Coven lead page like feel like a altar, because that's what it is. It's a digital altar. Like, yeah, it's a lead page, sales page, landing page, whatever, but it's an altar. It's an altar. And then the invitation email, it made it feel like an invitation. So thank you, Marissa. And I'm so glad you're here. And if you're looking for some epic art, go check out her page. We also did a pretty cool live that was 2 weeks ago, after one of the devotional dance parties, and just talked about like being magical through childhood and schooling years and our teachers and our mentors. And we were just in some like magical conversation about being magical. So go check that out on her page. Okay, reeling it back in. I get so excited when I see my honeys. So yeah, we're coming into healthy relationship with our ego. That's what's up right now. Like, our ego gets to be our friend. Like, ego death isn't like the ego dies and then assimilates into nothingness. It just assimilates, like it just transforms. It just then has space to like identify more with the source that it comes from, because death isn't a final process anyways, right? So if we're speaking to death, if we're using the term ego death, that's just leading to the birth anyways. That's just all of that energy getting dissolved, assimilated, alchemized in order for the rebirth to happen. So when working with the Creatrix Codes of Metamorphosis, part 1 of the formula, recognize. Part 2, alchemize. We're in alchemy. When you're alchemizing, first big thing I'm offering here, well, we just offered a whole lot of stuff, but like a pearl of wisdom to take from this space is like, meditate on the navel, meditate on your self-concept, and update that be. Like, moment to moment, breath to breath, day to day, morning to morning. What, how, who do you want to be? How do you want to meet it? How do you want to do it? What new tail feathers are you ready to grow from the inside? Shake your tail feathers, grow your tail feathers from the inside, right? Every day as a part of the Devotional Dance Coven, I'm so excited to share this. You guys, this came to me and I was just like, oh my God, the inner child's online. Here she is with her wisdom. So you know how there used to be like, and maybe there still is, and honestly, I want to find them. You know how there used to be days of the week underwear where it was like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, there was like a different theme. Loved that. huge. I was a huge limited two shopper. Loved limited two. Loved Abercrombie and Fitch. Loved me a good day of the week underwear situation. So that inspired me to provide for the Devotional Dance Coven a daily somatic movement and journal prompt that everyone's going to work with a corresponding weekly practice playlist that's thematically curated and in the resonance and vibration, because sound vibration, yeah, we got to work with that code. Everyone's going to work with that playlist in their own way. Maybe shuffle the song with their higher self, let whatever one needs to come up. And it's like, what does your day look like with a devoted higher self devotional dance party and journaling sesh where you are day to day being guided to check in with certain aspects of your consciousness in your mind, body, heart, blood, bones, and honey that support you in birthing the self that's ready to emerge. You guys, I'm so fucking excited. I have never been this excited about something that I'm offering. So thanks for the opportunity to share more inner child wisdom soon. I'm going to check into your comments. Kate said, honoring the death of parts of yourself that are no longer what you need. Boom. Holding ceremony for that personally now is the key for me. The Devotional Dance Coven is going to be the thing. Can't wait. Marissa and Kate are going to be joining us, y'all. So we got the coven in the comments already. Thank you, Kate. Thank you for that pin. Because yeah, like ceremony for death. I feel so passionately about that as someone who feels so passionate about ceremony for birth and just ceremony in general. Like, God, like holding ceremony again for these things, like they're a big deal, because they are. Like, it's a big deal to put down the stuff we've been carrying for so long. It's so familiar. It's a part of us. It's in the sponge. It's in the clay. It's on the walls. So in alchemy, we're taking all of that and we're like, okay, shame, okay, guilt, okay, self-loathing, okay, any parts of my censorship and my refusal to forgive myself. Like, I'm going to use all of this and I'm going to make an epic piece of art with my practice that's going to reveal to me how I'm ready to express and show up at my life. I'm going full witch, like wild woman, because the time to get wild and wise with it is now. And earlier this week, I was writing in my journal. I was channeling. I was just journaling and channeling. I actually really like channeling. Maybe we'll it makes me want to name my journal like Jan and be like, what's up, Jan? And my landlord of my old house was actually Jan, and I really loved him. So that feels like a nice memento. Max, did you hear that? He's probably laughing. So in my journal, I wrote, our wild and our wisdom. This was like fully from an ancestor. Our wild and our wisdom are inextricably woven. I was specifically channeling on Mother's Day with my ancestors, connecting to the Divine Mother. And it was just this pulse of like, our wild and our wisdom are inextricably woven. Our wild and our wisdom are inextricably woven. And it was just this code that was pulsing. And I was like, wow. Like, if our wisdom is in our wild and our wild has been repressed, then honey, we got a whole lot of wisdom to unleash. And some of the most ancient practices and ways of doing that are gathering in community, dancing, adorning yourself like an altar, acting like life is a ceremony and meeting it as an initiation, connecting to your higher self like you are your higher self and it's just no big deal. And then acknowledging the multidimensional nature of the universe and of life, acknowledging the multiverse, acknowledging the black womb of no thing that our souls arise from and are born from, or whatever way you relate to like the primordial process of birth and death. Because we all have our own wisdom and right to relate to that. And I am, again, not a authority on this. This is just the way my channel is offering this. So please, please, please always translate into your code in a way that feels good for you. All right, so we talked about meditation on the navel, healthy ego. We love that. Now it's time for the tarantula, who I really got dressed for today. Um, I love this card. This one is like my card. I'm like, it's my card. It can be your card too if you like it. But yo, the spider and I, it's really been showing up. A tarantula quite literally showed up for me when I had just started my yoga teacher training. This was like 2015, 16 with Nina B, my wise teacher, yoga therapist, wisdom woman, incredible movement mentor, meditation guide, ceremonialist, visionary, multi-galactic priestess, whale woman, incredible channel of all of the oceanic and fire currents. I love you, Nina. Thank you. When I had just started working with her, I was going through some intense initiation. I actually spoke about this on my story the other day. She had given me this book called Awakening Shakti. I flipped open to Durga, who's behind us today, the first goddess I ever worked with. Kali Ma followed not too far behind that. And I was in my studio apartment one night, and this is a studio apartment where I was like making all my thesis work, and I was calling myself back into my body, and I was getting furious at men, and I was activating my sacred rage, because before we can even talk about acceptance, forgiveness, compassion, that realm, we need space to express our sacred rage, right? Like, it's through the expression of the wild, it's through the expression of the truth of what's there. So the tarantula showed up for me as I was like having orgasms for the first time, like really like making a film that inspired me for the first time. I was like getting deep into my filmmaking practice, and I was studying feminist theory, and I was reading, and I was going to Duke, and I was in just like all of these like incredibly stimulating classes for my third eye and my heart and my body and my mind and all the things. And in my bathroom one night, I had just come home. I think this was shortly after getting Awakening Shakti. It might have been that same day. I'm not sure. You know how legends and myths get all, what is time and what is memory? But it was like either the same day or a couple days after Nina, my teacher, gave me Awakening Shakti. I found Durga, who was a mentor for me in like activating my right to be angry. Kali Ma holding all those skulls and the heads and stepping on the throats of abusers and being like, shut the fuck up. This is my time to speak. This is what I think. This is what I feel. This is what happened to me. This is my truth. Just like having that space to do that and really work that out was Durga's invitation for me. I come home from this activation. Maybe it's a couple days later. I have a Tibetan prayer sword that my teacher Nina has given to me. I don't remember why. Maybe she had like slept over, because I think something happened where like she couldn't get into her apartment one night after we had like this rehearsal for this dance coven we were in. We were also in a gallery. It was a whole thing. We were performing artists together, yogis. It was amazing. It's still happening. More on that soon. But I had her Tibetan prayer sword. Don't know why. In my apartment. And I was in the bathroom sitting on the toilet, and my wall was brick, and I was living in this apartment that it was a tiny, tiny little apartment. Like my whole apartment, it was a studio. It was probably the same size as this room. And there was a hole outside my window where all these spiders were living. And I was in North Carolina in Durham at Duke. So these are wolf spiders. And the wolf spiders are pregnant with the babies. And if you squish them, all the babies will come out. Just ask my mom. So there was like wolf spiders like crawling into my bedroom window, and my bed was like right by the window. And then I was in the bathroom one day sitting on the toilet, just like do. And I looked up, and there was a black widow just like with its whole body like starting to come out of the crack in my ceiling. And it wasn't a tarantula, but I thought it was a tarantula at the time. And then I saw like the red markings. The point is, I was surrounded by the spiders, and the activation was like, you are entering your life's work. The web is getting woven. Trust this anger, trust this emotion, trust the frustration, trust like all of the stuff bubbling up in the experiment and going like this as a part of the revealing. Because like the spiders coming in felt intrusive, and I was scared, and like I got bit by a brown recluse when I was in high school. So many spiders in North Carolina. And I was like scared that the spiders were going to bite me when I was sleeping. So there was like all of this fear. There was all of this weaving. There was all of this emotion. And I was quite literally at a crossroad and claiming my life's purpose, which honestly, I feel very there right now with this first round of the Devotional Dance Coven. It feels very big, feels very Jupiter and Aries, feels very Taurus season, feels very like, let's get her done, feels very higher self-activation. Feels very emergence for me. And what I want to say about the crossroads and being like a boo who loves the crossroads, I'm thinking of Britney Spears' movie. Is it called Crossroads? Marissa, Kate, I feel like you both know this if you're still watching. I'm like, maybe that's the activation I need to watch this weekend. We should all watch as a part of this trip. But like, that energy of being at the crossroads, of claiming your life's purpose, of making a choice, of how and where you're going to weave and what action is going to happen next and how it's all going to become a part of the web, is the activation of the tarantula. Yes, crossroads, she says. Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, so I'm going to do this every week in the Dance Coven too, but film activation for this episode of the Devotional Drip, we're all watching Crossroads, or if you want to, like, no pressure. Let me know what it activates. I'll watch it this weekend. So the tarantula is specifically pointing to, that's what I'm talking about, crossroads, because that's what the spider is pointing to. It's pointing to this mapping, this weaving, the choice, the crossroads energy, and a claiming of life's purpose. A claiming of your life's purpose and an understanding that you can turn, this is a code of my dear sister, Madeline Moon, your drama into dharma. And that might have come from one of her teachers too. I'm not sure. But just that energy of like our dharma as our life's purpose. So like whatever is showing up right now is part of the web. It's part of what's getting woven. It's part of what's meant to be here. And like, again, this energy of like acceptance, right? Like acceptance of the chrysalis, acceptance of the metamorphosis. And also like the tracking of the journey. Like, it's like, I want to say, where can you find the sovereignty in the slop? If there's a code that says don't be sloppy, like in order to track your journey, in order to go through metamorphosis, in order to like become who you're ready to become, do the thing you're ready to do, you have to do it perfect. You can't mess up. We talked about this last week around expressing your authenticity. If there's a code that says you can't be sloppy, and you can't mess up, and you can't be in process, and you can't figure it out, like it has to be perfect the first go around. The tarantula is like, put that down, understand that claiming the process and surrendering into the process is you surrendering more into the current of your purpose. And then the crossroads, it's not so much like this or that. It's more like breath to breath. Like, I want to say like, bye-bye right and wrong, this way, that way, consequence, and hello to this breath, this move, that moment. Permission to meet yourself as a living, breathing organism and life as a living, breathing ceremony, and the now moment as an ever-evolving thing. And surrender the need to plan it all out while also having a connection to your purpose and sense of direction. Like, what is a sense of direction, a sensing of where to go? The spider is sensing, feeling, smelling. There's this invitation to activate the senses, to touch, to taste, to know where, to understand the intricate weaving of all of the things. And maybe the thing that is feeling inconvenient or frustrating is part of that experiment energy, right? Of things bubbling up and needing to like come out and transform. Like transformation as bubbly, as soft, as watery, as fiery, as effervescent and moving and alive. Transformation is alive, and we are alive. And if we're if we're working with the codes of metamorphosis and we're working with the codes of alchemy, it's this inner yes. It's this inner yes, because once you start meeting life as the ceremony, I know all three high priestesses and magicians here know that, who are watching live right now, know that it's like, when you say yes to the mystery school, it says yes back to you. And it's profound. When you say yes to your higher self, they start showing up. When you call in the ancestors, they are present. When you connect to your breath and your body, you are there. It is so much more simple than we have been conditioned to believe, and also incredibly more intricate and complicated at the same time. But in the simplicity, what I want to invite is an approachability and a right to the self-right, the self-initiation activation. Pope Joan is a badass, and she self-initiated. And she was slandered for that, crucified in so many words for that. When you show up and you start giving yourself permission to live your dharma and live your purpose, there is this fierce, like, I am willing to walk in this forest no matter how dark it gets. I will trust and I will know that in the deepest part of the forest, in fact, it is a compliment that I have made it here. And it is here where I have access to my brightest light to shine. And the journey into the forest, into the garden, into the flower, into the nectar, into the answer, into the answer, into the you, into the you, into the you, into more of you, more of you, more of you, more of harmony, more of interconnectedness, more interknowing, more understanding that leads to more interbeing. That is the great invitation of the spider, of our dharma. And as we're doing this, we acknowledge that, like, it is already done. And like, we are in this now moment walking a path on the timeline that somewhere in some time, space, reality, our future self already is somewhere on this timeline. So when we're transforming and when we're in the alchemy, it's not so much about the destination. My dad says, stay out of the results business. Such a good code. But it's about knowing that there is an emerging that's happening. And so to know that something is blooming, to know that something is blossoming, I'm getting like the way that you self-pleasure or provide pleasure to someone else. It's like there is an opening, there is a patience, there is a softening, there is an allowing, there is a dropping of all patriarchal, capitalist, white supremacist programs that say we need to rush and get it done now. Because that's not how we find the garden. That's not how we cultivate the garden. And there can be an urgency in the depth of the forest, but even in the moment of urgency, it's breath and listening and stillness that's always going to yield the most profound and nourishing results that feed you. So, casual tarantula saying that it's time to prioritize your life's purpose. In that be like stewardship, calling out the things that are no longer serving. What are the habits that got to go? Because it's like, I'm like seeing the web be sort of weighed down. It's like cutting your losses, like cutting the weights, dropping them on the ground, and understanding that maybe someone else is going to use that as a boulder. So great. Like, you don't have to take everything with you. I'm getting with the spider too, this energy of like non-hoarding and just letting go and letting be and giving space. And the patience that the tarantula offers around hovering and waiting, patient and kind, That feels like your higher self just being like, yes, it's time to do this now. And also, how kind are you willing to be to yourself in the process of dropping these weights, of letting go, of giving yourself permission to do things in a new way? Can we do that without shame? Can we try new things without needing to know how it's going to turn out, needing it to be perfect, or like creating the new habit or routine or ritual from a place of shame? Like really being mindful of our intention. If spells are based on intention, then what's the intention of creating the new habit, routine, ritual, agreement, or whatever it is? Like, what's the resonance underneath the motivation? So the tarantula is our second part of alchemy, our second part of alchemizing, our second part of knowing that our alchemical journey of transformation and metamorphosis is so much about following our intuition. And intuition doesn't care about the linear nature of reality as much as perhaps sometimes we want it to. Like, intuition is that nectar and that key part of Regina Spektor's code. In the forest, there's a garden. In the garden, there's a flower. In the flower, there's the nectar. In the nectar, there's the answer. In the answer, there's an answer. It's like this patience. Like, intuition and accessing our intuition requires patience to get to the nectar. My teacher, Nina, says we have to start with the quiet. We have to start with the stillness, or we at least need to bring that in so that the movement can come from a place of inner connected being, knowing, and rootedness and belonging. Like, a dancer who's moving connected to the earth looks really different than a dancer who's not connecting to the ground. When you're dancing, honestly, I think I need to stand up because I've been channeling for a while and I can just do this in this new space. Like, when you're dancing, if you want to jump, like, you have to go down to go up. We got to go down to go up. And so what a code, casual, what a code for ascension around, like, we must go down to go up. We must go in to come out. And the tarantula says it's patience. Like, find me in the depths of the forest. I actually don't know where tarantulas live. Caves, forests. I don't know. The Black Widow was living in my bathroom. So I'm going to assume damp, dark places, or maybe tarantulas actually like dry environments. If there are any tarantula experts here who would like to share their wisdom or know a little something, or would like to give us a Google, feel free to drop it in the comments. So we have to go down to go up. That is like the code of ascension. That's the code of metamorphosis. That's physics. That's quantum leaping. Like, what's so interesting about the quantum leap culture is that the farther you go out, you need to go in. And the farther you want to go, and however far you want to go out, you need to go in order for there to be a symbiotic relationship and that not blow you out. Like, it's one thing to create prosperity. It's another thing to hold it. It's another thing to then not judge yourself and hold yourself against some arbitrary standards, some linear model, some ivory tower model of how all this is supposed to look. Some casual tarantula forest. Thank you, Marissa. Okay, well, great. So our code, our Regina Spektor code, in the forest, there's a garden. In the garden, there's a flower. In the flower, there's a nectar. There is nectar. In the nectar, there's an answer. Like, that is the code. And the fact that the tarantulas live in the forest is beautiful, weaving together our entire mural of like, we got to go in, we got to go to the woods, we got to go inside, we got to clean out the cobwebs, but also like admire the cobwebs and admire the way that the masterpiece is coming into being. the imbalance position in this book for the tarantula, like to bring the tarantula energy into balance out of a state of like habitually over intellectualizing and sort of like challenging yourself up the mountain and into the forest. The tarantula is like journal daily, which is hilarious because that's what we're going to be doing in the devotional dance coven. And I'm like, yes. But like the offering is like daily journaling, like daily mapping, daily checking in, daily meeting that organic self and the codes and the you and what's up and what's there and what's needed and how you're doing and what's going on and how can we love ourselves and all beings today in a new way. What can we put down? What's on the altar? What's the scene? The tarantula is like, check the scene. Every day is a crossroad. Every day you're weaving. Every day is a, what is the song from Crossroads? It'll come back in. We're going to watch it anyways, but it's that energy of like, yes, like we are waking up every morning at a crossroads. Every breath is a crossroads. Like I used to do this thing, and my clients have told me they do this too, or some of them, around if I'm going to make a change, I need to start tomorrow. Like I can't start in this now moment. Like if my procrastination has taken over my day, then at 4 p.m. I can't activate because I have to wait till tomorrow. It's like that energy of like, it needs to look this way. It should look this way. I can't. Like anywhere there's like a denial to do things new, the tarantula is like, get in there and meet life moment to moment, breath to breath. Like you could have a shitty morning and make 10 grand this afternoon. What is it like to play with possibility? Pope Joan, her mantra is the pontiff of possibilities, or pontiff. I'm actually not sure how you say that. But the possibilities are limitless because the soul is limitless. So to meet your life, and I feel like limitlessness, like go to your limits, limitlessness, expansion has been such a it's like got so much masculine energy, like as a principle, like patriarchy stuff dripped all over it. But like possibility and potential and like limitlessness, that's like the expansiveness of the womb space. That's the expansiveness of the primordial nothing. That's like your soul asking to be born. Like that's the depth we're talking about. In the chrysalis, anything can happen. So life as the mystery school, life as the chrysalis, the journey as the forest, your practice as the chrysalis, your transformation as the chrysalis, tarantula, butterfly, peacock, bee, honey, nectar, flower, like life, movement, organic structures, change, not resisting change. When you surrender into change, it's easier. When you resist change, it tastes like metal on your tongue. It's bitter and restrictive, and it has the energy of punishing. And I'm seeing chains. Animal Black says, yes, start a new day right now. Yes. So in the new dawn, new day energy, we have like I hear what the drip needs to be about. I pull the cards. Y'all know all the multidimensional weaving is happening. This is a bookmark from my childhood that I recently inherited from my grandma. And it was sitting in my book next to this sheet of paper, which I'm not going to show you the whole code on here, but it says the emerald is coming. I posted this on my Instagram this morning. So sitting in one of my books with this butterfly bookmark, and we've been needing to move out of our home for a while, and we've just been like waiting for the time to come. And so this new space arrived, and there was a couple of surrender moments and trust and faith moments through it, as I've shared. And what's been so beautiful about tracking the butterfly the last couple of years, I've like really been in some butterfly codes, which is how the Creatrix Codes of Metamorphosis like even came into being. As we transition into the third part of this formula, which is emergence, what I want to speak to is the way that emerging is a tender process. So first part of the code, recognize the change that needs to happen, do your alchemy. Third part, emerge. So recognize plus alchemize equals emergence, which is honestly so fun to give like that embodiment code like that, because Marissa and I, on the Instagram live we did together about 2 weeks ago on her page, you can find it. We were talking about our history with math, and I have a really tender history with math, but I'm actually really good at it. And so that sort of, it, like, I want to speak to that in terms of like, here I am giving codes when one of my deepest subconscious programs has been, I'm not smart enough, or I'm not fast enough, or I'm behind, which is so, it's a shared felt sense and mental construct, and nervous system pattern for many people who are neurodivergent, who are highly sensitive, artistic, have survived trauma of any kind. Like there can be a tenderness in the emerging. And so these codes come from my body. The Creatrix Codes of Metamorphosis came from my body. The third code that came forward is emerge. My experience of emerging, it is tender. The butterfly is coming forward to speak to, let me just show you the card because these are just so lovely. They make me want to go draw in my sketchbook. The butterfly coming forward to say that, to affirm, like the card is like, you're going through great transformation. Welcome. And if this is you, if that resonates, and if you're watching this drip, I'm assuming that it does, you need to be so tender with yourself in the process, so kind, so loving. Well, I don't want to tell you anything you need to do. Let me reframe my language. The invitation of the butterfly is to explore what gentleness and kindness looks like right now for you. Where can you infuse more gentleness and more kindness to support you in your transformation? Where can you infuse more permission, more acknowledgement that this process is tender, and that the cocoon is a non-negotiable, the chrysalis is a non-negotiable. Like the butterfly won't, or the caterpillar won't become the butterfly unless it has a chrysalis. The butterfly comes forward all the time. I'm always referencing it. And particularly today, around these codes that we've shared with the tarantula, the peacock, and the bee, what I want to point to with the butterfly in the realm of self-acceptance is, and like the tenderness of accepting ourselves, the tenderness of accepting our power, is like, it's a process of like seducing ourselves forward and out and into the permission to take up more space in our usness. And there's grieving that comes along with it, because there's tenderness around claiming and expressing parts of you that perhaps have felt like they haven't had space or haven't been safe to come forward. And so, you know, as you're birthing those parts, again, we have the death ceremony of the old selves, and we have the valid grieving of the let go, and the discomfort. Like death is uncomfortable. It can be sacred and uncomfortable at the same time. Yeah. It can be incredibly uncomfortable and challenging, and also on behalf of our highest good at the same time. And starting to just like play with holding that as a way to relate to the sticky stuff. The butterfly emerging today specifically, I'm being called to like the way that the butterfly needs to dry its wings and really just take time to spread out. And how important, like regulation is not my favorite word, and neither is routine, but to have some sort of regulation and ritual and routine in place that supports you in exploring the new parts of yourself that you're wanting to bring forward for more airtime. And the offering from this card, from this book, is to have a daily routine. And I also know that that's a tender one for neurodivergent, highly magical folks, because what is routine and what is time? Great questions. I don't have answers, but you do. Like you have the answers around what your, hold on, I just got distracted by Max outside. I'm gonna close the door. You have the answers to what your unique daily embodiment map looks like. You have the answers to your unique higher self codes, your pleasure codes, what turns you on, what turns you off, what gets you going, what feels like your medicine. Like no more shitting, no more comparing ourselves. And Marissa coming forward to share her wisdom around birth being uncomfortable too. Like, hell yeah. The fourth trimester is rest and recuperate. Yeah. 100%. And the way that I feel like I am in some like postpartum energy around bringing the dance coven into being is so real. Like, I have not had the experience of birthing a baby from my body, but I feel deeply passionate about postpartum and fourth trimester support and like rest and restoration and regulation. And I love that you're offering that, Marissa, because it's like, yes, it's like that butterfly drying on the leaf, its wings in the sun, and it just having this space to recoup and understand, like, yo, I just became a butterfly. And I actually know quite a few of my clients right now that are moving through that activation of like awakening, acceptance. Like, the activation of self-acceptance is also an activation of awakening, right? Like, when we accept, we awaken. When we forgive, we create space. When we birth, when we die, like, space is created, and space is also taken up. So this very alive process. Love that Marissa's pointing to the rest and the recuperation, and this card pointing to routine, recoup, restoration, routine, recharge. How powerful to give ourselves the gift of that in the process of our own metamorphosis, because emerging is tender and the fourth trimester requires rest. And often, and support, and coven, and storytelling, and food, and just time together, time spent together. So whether you're in the chrysalis, are about to go into the chrysalis, are emerging from the chrysalis, need to create a chrysalis, come join us in the Devotional Dance Coven. We're going to be all up in these Creatrix Codes of Metamorphosis. And the last thing I want to offer, that was my little show and tell for today, is this moon journal in honor of this Devotional Dance Coven happening. And I'm actually also going to just take a couple minutes now to speak into the Devotional Dance Coven and just share some details about that. So if you're interested, you're welcome to stay. If not, many blessings, and I will see you soon. I will send out the replay. We're going to have some Devotional Dance Coven talk, and I'm also going to weave it into what we've been talking about today. So feel free to stay regardless. So I'm actually going to start this just by running through like what our structure of the Devotional Dance Coven is, going through some deliverables and structure in case you're curious. So we are kicking off on Sunday with our orientation. We'll go through program details, program overview. We'll do some journal blessings. We'll connect. We'll introduce ourselves. We'll set the circle. We'll set the scene. And then on Monday, we have our first activation. And that's the first activation of 7 activations that we will walk through weekly on Mondays, with replays going out within 24 hours through 7 portals, 7 passageways, and 7 pillars of higher self-embodiment, of metamorphosis, of self-discovery, of higher self-realization, and of weaving ritual into every corner of our lives, and play and magic and creativity and our higher self light, because that's just how we roll. So that is how that's going to happen. They're going to be weekly sacred movement and higher self-embodiment activations. There will be a weekly teaching. Then we'll go through the weekly higher self-embodiment and movement activation, including breath work, visualization, meditation, movement guidance. And then we'll also do some somatic journaling together every week. You will then have time after our activations if you want to stay and chat live. We will be in some Coven space on the Zoom together, and everyone who wants to share will have an opportunity to share. We'll weave our codes together like we do on the drip. And then after our live call, you will receive the replay, as well as daily journal prompts, daily somatic journal prompts and somatic movement prompts, a weekly practice playlist, and a weekly home ritual to help you in integrating the codes that come forward for you in our time together into your daily life, across the personal altars, across the professional altars, in relationship, in business, in leadership, in creativity, in your self-care practice, in relationship to your family and your kids and your home and all the things. You're going to have a home ritual to help you start to integrate these codes to bring your practice from the altar of our Monday calls, or if you catch us on the replay, to the altar of your life. These weekly higher self-care rituals and movement prompts and journal prompts are also going to support you in creating a living record and library of your transformation, which is quite literally what the tarantula was pointing us to in this week's episode of The Drip, with our daily journaling, as well as the butterfly pointing to the daily routine. So as a part of our weekly activations and container and practice, I'm going to invite you to make a higher self-care spell book. This is one of my very first ones that I made. I believe that this is from about 3rd grade. And it is my moon journal. You'll see it says moon journal. And I actually grabbed it right before hopping on because my higher self guided me to it. And there's all kinds of, and inner child props. There's all kinds of fun illustrations in here, and there's poems about the moon. And it was for one of my classes I was taking. And I was supposed to check in every day and make a journal entry, like very much so like this, you know? And so, I mean, y'all know I love journaling, and it's a huge part of my practice. So we're going to create very, very special higher self-care practice journals for our 7 weeks together. And one of my teachers, Erica Brown, says that you'll find the medicine in your journal. Like if you get into a regular journaling practice, like the medicine and the answers will be in your journals. It's like that energy of like revealing the nectar that we were talking about, like daily journaling, revealing the nectar, get into it. Yeah. It's like getting into it and revealing the codes and then dripping the honey on the page. We're going to be in that every week in our activations. I'll just read one that I just pulled. I just randomly flipped to this page. It says, this is a poem I wrote about the moon. Shadows creep along my house. The moon is sleeping in bed and turns the lights out so no stars can come in. Even though the stars are mother moon's children singing in the darkness, sleeping all alone in bed. I hear cars go by. I yawn and fall asleep. So just like this is such an innocent poem and stream of consciousness, and just the reminder of like, wow, like the little delicacy of our beings, like they love a pen and paper. They love to express, and like what a gift it is to put pen to paper and bring forward what's there and record our journey and record our wisdom and give ourselves the opportunity to like get in touch with what's real for us. How to make a star, how to make a moon. If you ever wanted to know how to draw a star to moon. So the point is that we're going to play, okay? And you're going to make a higher self-care journal. You're going to have all your codes in there. We're also going to be making oracle decks out of the codes that are coming forward in our practice. So we're going to be dancing, we're going to be moving, we're going to be breathing, we're going to be in our embodiment practice, but we're also going to be in our art practice. We're also going to be in our right to create art and ritual with our practice, our right to like meet our life as the canvas and understand that our emotions, our energy in motion, they are the paintbrushes, they are the wisdom strings that bring us to the altar of our truth. And so we're going to practice meeting life like that. And I am going to be your Carmen Sandiego meets Miss Frizzle, meets spiritual guide, meets art teacher, meets embodiment guide on the path. And I just want to speak into also the beings who will be joining us in this space are very high level and no nonsense magical people. So the Coven is high level already. It's going to be an intimate space. And you're going to go through a 7-part metamorphosis, and we're going to explore all of the things that we talked about today on the drip in real time together or on replays. I do have people that are just tuning into the replays. So if you can't join us live, that's totally valid. And if you want to sign up, the link is in the description of this video. And I think that that's all for today, y'all. The last thing I want to say is that if you decide to opt into a private mentorship container, I do have space right now for one more person in private mentorship. So if you do that, the Dance Coven is included. You can book your clarity call at the link below as well. And if you haven't joined the newsletter, you can do so in the description. If you haven't liked or subscribed to the channel yet, and you resonated with this video, please do so. We love a 2-hour drip. Honestly, it's my comfy spot. I love to just let the channel go. And these were such beautiful mentors that came forward for us today. No more prompts on the blog for now, at least while I'm running the Devotional Dance Coven for the Devotional Drip. I'm going to take a break on the daily movement and journal prompts, but there is a whole library on the Blood, Bone, and Honey blog of like 18 different episodes where I have I think maybe all 18 are on there. There's at least 10 of them on there where you can go and find journal prompts and movement prompts. And there's links to all the practice playlists every month as well. So you can go check that out. And then I'm going to feel into this Devotional Dance Coven and give those daily movement and journal prompts, and then reorient the way that I want to offer that through the drip. There's a lot shifting and changing right now for Blood, Bone, and Honey and for all of us. And so, we're the butterfly, we're in the chrysalis, we're making the transformation, we're taking flight, and we are reaching new heights and new perspectives, and that is so exciting. Many blessings, Kate. Thank you for tuning in, love. Okay, so because I'm not offering a prompt, I want to offer this one from the Divine Feminine Oracle Guidebook. This is from Pope Joan's transmission, and the soul voice meditation offered is enter the heart and repeat this mantra, I am light, and see what images or words arise. I love that. Another embodiment exercise I want to offer that I offered to a client this week that I tried out yesterday, that was so powerful, is eye gazing in the mirror and just saying, I love you to yourself and speaking that into your being, like when you're washing your face, when you're brushing your teeth, like just integrating that as a part of your mirror practice. If Marissa's still here, I know she has an epic mirror practice, and I know Kate does too. Okay, so the intention is at the center of everything, there is light, and I am that light. So the prompt is find the light. Find the light. Find the light. I love making love to the light. I've had to study the light all week in this new space because I have a boudoir shoot here on Friday with a pregnant woman, and I'm so excited for it. So excited for it. But I'm like a nut for studying the light. So I've been studying the light all week. And if you can't tell, it's epic in this house. And it's whenever I start studying the light in a new space, it's such a beautiful meditation for me to remember that sometimes like the most beautiful light patterns are created in the most unlikely spaces. And like to let the light create the mood, and to like create mood with light and to find the light, like that's some really potent higher self embodiment inquiry for the week. Kate came through in the comments with her moons and stars and electric bolts. We've got Jupiter in Aries. We've got a full moon total eclipse coming up in Scorpio. Talk about the spiral down and up, the devolve to evolve ascension pathway. We will be going into all of that. Many blessings, my beautiful butterflies. You can create the life of your dreams. I believe in you. If you want to walk with us in doing so for 7 weeks, join us in the Dance Coven, link below. And thank you, as always, for joining me. It's such an honor to spend this time with you and to get to come and share and talk about things I love, like embodiment and transformation and power and self-care and art and play and life and juiciness and yumminess and all the good stuff. So thank you. Thank you. I'll talk to you next week, 5 p.m. on the weekly drip. DJ Sarah signing out. Out, out, out. Many blessings. I love you guys so much. Create the foundations. Let yourself shine. You are the altar, the temple, and the butterfly. Create the chrysalis. Let yourself fly. Bye.